It's a good tuna, but I think I paid too much.
I always wear my mask and wash my hands after going home.
I am the king of the ring.
Welcome to the Japan What Podcast, episode 203. And I am your host, Matthew P.M. Bigelow.com. And I'm coming at you from the Aizumicho Studios in Shinjuku, Tokyo, Japan. The armpit of Asia. Covering Japan Society 5.0, AI markets, rising conflict in the Indo-Pacific, and the supply chain wars. We thank you for coming along the adventure that is today's show. Busy day as usual. The cherry blossoms are beginning to bud here in the springtime of Tokyo. The plum blossoms have been out for a few days where I live in central Tokyo. And I've been appreciating their blooming. A variety of other flowers too, and it's quite nice. It's quite nice to see the flowers arrive in spring. Although I will say this about spring. There's a reason why it's called the Ides of March and not August sucks. Although in Japan, August is pretty bad. The Ides of March, Shakespearean reference, Macbeth, I believe. And that's when a whole bunch of people hid in a forest and came out and killed something or somewhere or another. You know, I'm not speaking in iambic pentameter right now, and that kind of indicates how I can reference this material off the top of my dome here. But spring is the worst season. Changed my mind. I say this, and everybody goes, no, spring's the best season. It's just like, it's winter is over, and then so nice. It's like, there's like 3 days of nice spring. The rest of it sucks. Get over it. Spring blows. You get some nice things. You get like the perfect spring day, but then as that's it. There's one. And then it's always like on a Wednesday when you're busy doing something and you can't go out and appreciate it. And then the other days, it's like time to go out and do some spring stuff, and a chill comes in, and then some sort of ice thing happens, and some freak wind snowstorm occurs, and spring is the worst. The only reason we're told to believe in it and make it the best thing ever is some sort of psyop. Spring, the idea that spring is good is a psyop. And if you believe it, it means looks like you got some programming you got to scoop out of that old brain there of yours and come over to the way of the Japan What podcast style thinking, which is reflected in reality, not some sort of psyop land, that spring blows. There's a reason why they call it the Ides of March and not August sucks. All right, let's break into the news for today. Whenever I mention iambic pentameter, I have this meter that starts going off in the back of my brain. Da-da, 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 da-da. I think it's because I'm a drummer, and I can naturally process patterns and rhythms in one part of my brain while engaging in other activities in another part of my brain. I guess it's like if you've cooked enough of a simple type of dish, you can kind of make it without thinking about it while you're off in La La Land thinking spring's a great thing. But now I just have the iambic pentameter rhythm plucking its way through the back of my brain here. I hate it. I really don't. Iambic pentameter is good for some things, but just da-da, 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 da-da in the back of your head, not one of them. All right, we're going to begin the news here today, and we're going to focus a little bit on Japan first things and foremost. And we're going to play this one. All right, so just a couple of things. Basically, we're going through a major cost of living upset here in Japan. I prepared some materials, but I decided not to use them. But just in brief, people might be getting wages, but the cost of living with inflation and the yen depreciating is making it so that even with increases in wages, you're overall experiencing a decrease in lifestyle. And not everybody gets the same increase. So somebody like the population ad hoc might get a 1.6% increase in wages over the past period, whatever that period is, 5, 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, doesn't matter that much. But with the increases of inflation and then things going up and quality of things going down, and then your yen doesn't buy what it used to if you wanted to import some stuff from abroad, it means that everything's kind of going down. So a big part of this is energy. Japan is known for being energy poor, culturally rich, but energy poor. And even though we had the crazy Fukushima disaster, well, this is the anniversary. We are recording this on March 12th, 2025. And March 11th is the Fukushima, I don't want to say anniversary, but Remembrance Day. I don't want to say Remembrance Day because then the World War II people get upset about that. Because everything is World War II all the time. We can't have anything else but World War II all the time. But anyways, it marks the date. And of course, at the time, we were like, get rid of this nuke stuff. It's scary. But now everybody's like, I'm willing to risk some nuclear power stuff going kind of wonky if it means I'm not driven into abject poverty over the course of the next 10 years. So this first one is about nuclear energy. And it comes to us from JapanForward.com, which is the English arm of the Sankei Shimbun. And I've interviewed the editor-in-chief once, Mr. Yasuo Naito. Very good, very upstanding gentleman, I'll say that. But Sankei Shimbun, many people will say is, it's the right-wingers and they're crazy. Yeah, well, then why are they all in the SDG stuff and also DEI? And, it's not as right-wing as the left wing, everybody in Antifa would like you to believe. That one crazy left wing friend of yours who's just like, hey, I saw this interesting thing on this link on social media, and they look at it like, wait, that's the far right thing, and now you're a Nazi, now I'm a Nazi. I can't talk to you ever again. I'm done with those people. Have been for years. And if they were my close friends before, well, certainly not now. And my life is actually a lot better with it. I'd rather listen to AI-generated music by myself than deal with those people all the time. That everything is racist, people. Get out of my life. We begin. International Atomic Energy Agency visited the Kashiwazaki Kariwa Nuclear Power Station on February 18th. Located in Niigata Prefecture, it is one of the Tokyo Electric Power Company's, or TEPCO, nuclear facilities. After touring the station, Grossi, the head there, declared that preparations had reached the stage where the facility was ready to restart operation. And he said that he was convinced that TEPCO had made great progress in ensuring safety and nuclear security. Coming from the head of an international organization whose mission is the peaceful use of nuclear energy, we should take him seriously. But the governor there in Niigata, he has not given his consent, which is necessary for the reactor to restart. Otherwise, it's considered political. Governor Hanazumi's cautious stance may be motivated by his desire to gauge prefecture's residents' sentiment on the restart. However, he is taking far too much time to make his decision. So this is kind of a key point of the article, and that's why I'm including it at the beginning here, is that where was the timid beyond caution? After all, Niigata's own technical committee has been independently verifying the safety measures at the nuclear power plant, and it also submitted a report to the governor on February 12th stating that most of the 22 items confirmed to date have shown no problems. This is just a list of things that maybe people had concerned about. The number 7 at the nuclear power station is a state-of-the-art advanced boiling water reactor with improved structural safety. With an output of 1.356 million kilowatts, it has one of the largest generating capacities in Japan. Restarting that reactor would also ease power supply pressures in the Tokyo region. Meanwhile, problems at thermal nuclear power plants, cold waves, and extreme heat threaten the capital's function. So this is kind of it's one of the few newspapers or publishers in Japan that will just very clearly say that people are being NIMBYs, basically. The governors in Japan, or whatever they're called, the heads of prefectures are being NIMBYs about this. They're all living in the shadow of Fukushima, and they don't want to be the person responsible for the next nuclear disaster. That does kind of make sense. But are you, with everything that I've outlined that's actually happening right now, should we not be thinking about what is the pressure of the present rather than the shadow of the past? Now, how much power for houses? 1.356 million kilowatts can power how many houses? Because that's usually how it says. Hold on a second. I'll just look into this. I'll pause this. All right. I did the foolish thing and did an internet search. Never internet search anymore. Just ask a large language model. And I asked Grok from X, and it gave me a very long answer, but it says step 6, final answer. Given that 1.356 million kilowatts is likely a capacity, the most practical interpretation is thus. 1.356 million kilowatts could power approximately 2.16 million households in Japan. One plant. Now, would that bring down the cost of everything and make our lives better? Yes, it would. Start the reactors, please. Please. Everything's going up. Everything's getting worse. I don't mean to be like a bah humbug about this, because I know some people who've recently moved into Japan, back to Japan, and they're pursuing lives and things like that. My main concern here for the downward trajectory is basically for young people, people under the age of 30 or specifically 25, who are trying to onboard into society. It'd be nice to give them a more approachable scenario for them to onboard with their professional lives. Otherwise, one point that I've been making is it just becomes easier to live poor. If you're just going to have to move into a city and work a lot of hours for a job that doesn't pay much in a scenario where everything is getting more expensive while the quality is dropping. I mean, this sucks for young people. I'm in my mid-40s. I don't really need all that much anymore. I've bought the things I need to buy, and if I don't have much money, I'll just use these things that I've bought, like these microphones and computers and stuff that I use for podcasting and making music and stuff like that. If I'm not making money, I have enough stuff in my repertoire of items that I have to get by in life. But at the same time, why would you say this to young people? Look at these opportunities, turn on the nuke plans, give the youth some opportunities. And if it all blows up, well then, shogunai, as they say, shogunai. All right. Anything else for Japan? That's about it. We're going to look at some supply chain war stuff. It's peripheral, but noteworthy to say the least. Of course, the supply chain wars is the increased competition between G7 in America and China and Russia and BRICS. Japan is in a unique position as it's pushed up against China, but affiliated economically or politically with the U.S. And so a lot of these Asian countries, Malaysia, Korea, we're all we have to navigate this pressure on both sides. Otherwise we'll get squished like a bug. And the supply chain wars comes in various factors. It's the podcast positions it as BRICS and China trying to establish a new hegemon globally using the renminbi and Chinese shipping and AI and satellites to create a sense of security and safety and invite other countries into their new and improved system. And the G7 likes to leverage itself as rules-based international order, fairness, and backed by basically the U.S. Military, the U.S. Navy forward projection. But on one hand, the BRICS style is very authoritarian, many people say. And on the other hand, while the G7 likes to talk about democracy, the world outside the G7, or even on the edge of the G7, like Japan is in, we can look at the G7 and go, well, democracy. I mean, Canada just has a new prime minister. Trudeau stepped down. There's a new guy there, Mr. Carney, Prime Minister Carney. He wasn't elected. The elections in Romania, just overturn. No, we can't have that. And then as well, pledging a whole bunch of things to developing countries that simply are not really that required. An example I like to use, I believe, was Ghana, a major cocoa producer. A lot of G7 or UN style initiatives will go into these places and say, well, if you want foreign direct investment, then you need to have 50% of your women be CEOs in your corporate cocoa boards or something like that. And they go, what? And then they have to say, and you need diversity training. And what about trans? Where's the trans? Where's the LGBTQ friendly materials for the foyer of your building? Well, you don't have those? And they go, what? And it's like, what? And then China comes in and says, we want 50 tons of cocoa, and we're going to give you, in exchange for the cocoa, all of this Huawei 5G telecommunications equipment. And these poor people go, oh, we need that. Let's do that. So it's not a clear picture. It's very murky. It's very subversive. There's a lot that goes on that we're not being told about, and we have to not read between the lines, but take what information we can get and piece it together, like some sort of Humpty Dumpty, and we're putting it all back together again. But so it comes and goes, and it's a supply chain war. Some people might say, what, we're bombing each other? It's like, yeah. Some people might say, what, we're fighting for supply chain dominance? Well, yeah, there's that. And then there's all this activism that's underlying it, and all the subversion that's underlying that. And it's becoming clearer and clearer what it is, and especially with Mr. Trump back in the White House, he's talking about tariffs here and America first here, maybe withdrawing from NATO there. So it really puts the supply chain as a overarching highlight of current developments. I've been talking about the supply chain wars for years now, ever since Wuhan was shut down, and it sent our supply chains into a tailspin for a few years. I wonder if that was done on purpose. I wonder if some AI program, just like a program for chess or for Go or for Ego or for those black and white Asian versions of chess, they put a stone in the middle of nowhere, and then 20 minutes later, that's a conclusive position for the AI to beat the human in a game. Well, is China using similar programs? I don't know. We'll get into that later. But this first one, in the supply chain war, you might think, well, this doesn't sound like supply chain, but is it? The headline would say no, but the contents might say, maybe it is. Japan to give, this comes to us from japantoday.com via Kyodo News. So it's domestic. Japan to give $3 million to help Pacific Islands fight climate change. What? This isn't about supply chains? Japan will provide $3 million to Pacific Island nations to help them implement measures against climate change, the foreign ministry said, in an apparent bid to counter China's expanding clout in the region. Japanese Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya informed Baron Waka, Secretary General of the Pacific Islands Forum, on the decision during talks in Tokyo, noting that, quote, strengthening the resilience of Pacific Island countries is key to the stability of the Indo-Pacific region, according to the ministry. Iwaya said that climate change is the single greatest existential threat to the Pacific Island countries, while Waka highly valued Tokyo's planned contribution as a demonstration of its serious effort to address the issue, the ministry said. The two also agreed to set up a senior official level dialogue between Japan and the 18-member body to strengthen communication and boost their cooperative relationship, it said. So there's that. Basically, China has established some beachheads in the island chains that were politically dominated by the G7 to hem China in, and China's breaking out of that with its claims on the South China Sea, and as well as with some areas in Papua New Guinea, as well as some other Micronesian or micro states that exist in the Pacific there. I can't think of it off the dome of my head. The Cook Islands as well, which is largely dominated by a connection to New Zealand, which is a Five Eyes thing, with surveillance or international security. These independent islands have now allowed for China to come in, and this is a stepping stone on the way to South America, which is rife with, has plenty of minerals and other things that China would like to expand into, including markets. So there's all these things that are happening. So Japan's answer is the G7 answer to fight climate change because they think it's the biggest existential threat. I'm not a big climate change guy. I hate pollution. I don't like overfishing. I like saving the whales. But this whole, we have to spend $3 trillion over the next 5 years to prevent the average temperature of rising 0.5 degrees. Otherwise, everything's just going to melt away. I don't believe that. This is ooga booga witch doctor logic. And so for Japan to have such high members of its establishment say that climate change is the single greatest existential threat to Pacific Island countries, does he believe it? I don't know. He's saying it. This goes back to the issue that Ghana has. Do they want to have 50% board members and all this LGBTQ stuff parading around their country so that they can get a few $1 million? Or would they rather have something practical like a bunch of 5G Huawei equipment? Cook Islands might be facing something similar. So Japan is taking a kind of a managerial role underneath the American umbrella to persuade island nations to take some money for climate change, wink, wink. But really, what's $3 million in the Pacific Islands going to do for climate change? I mean, the whole reason why we're supposed to care about these places from sinking underneath the threat of climate change is that they're powerless to do anything about it. That's how they guilt trip. That's how like the World Economic Forum guilt trips everybody into doing ridiculous things like putting your plastic in a plastic bag so that it can be disposed and recycled into something plastic. Because if you don't, if you throw it away, then climate change will happen and you're not taking care of your garbage. So all these poor suckers in Micronesia are going to drown because of the way that you're using your stupid plastic, you rich fuck. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll put my plastic in plastic and put that in a box. And I'll be a very nice person because I don't want Micronesia to drown because I'm too rich and I'm like this powerful consumer god where if my actions go unchecked, I will drown nations with my plastic usage. It's ridiculous. It's witch doctor logic. It is. It really is. So, this is the supply chain war, though. It's just to kind of persuade these Pacific Island nations to kind of remain in the umbrella of the G7 supply chain, or to not allow China to expand into its shores. That's kind of what it said in the bid counters, in an apparent bid to counter China's expanding clout in the region. But I'm not sure if $3 million is going to cut it. How cheap do you think these people are? Are they, it's like, I don't know, $3 million. What am I? Some sort of Micronesian whore? You don't have more money than that to cough up Japan? Is that how bad things are over there? You only come to us with $3 million? Jeez. All right. Next one in the climate change. Not the climate change, supply chain war. This one's a different one entirely. So I have 3 items. They're all totally different, but they're kind of separate snapshots of what's going through. And I could have put this one into Society 5.0, but this comes to us from DigitimesAsia.com. And it says China's breakthrough. Huawei and semiconductor manufacturing company, China, I think is what it is, reportedly advancing lithography, an 2025 trial and 2026 rollout. So lithography is that very advanced, complex technology where that prints chips. So you have like the silicon and all these things, and you have to print the memory and all the circuits and everything into these chips. And this is going down to the nanometer level in places like Taiwan. And because of all of the sanctions placed on China, China is trying and attempting to make its own domestically produced advanced chips supply chain network. I worked in telecoms from 2015 to 2020 in Japan. And one thing that is very common once you're in there is how much countries and companies are reliant on each other for the production of semiconductor materials or chips materials. Mind here, comes here, lithography there, engineers here, research and development there. And if you want to have it all be smooth, you really have to work together really hard. But China wants to make its own and that way they don't have to worry about these sanctions anymore. And in one way, they would be able to declare themselves as global champions by accomplishing something that all of these other great nations didn't even think about, assumed it was impossible. Yet here we are, China. So it just says China is advancing an extreme ultraviolet lithography with a domestically developed system undergoing testing at Huawei's Dongguan facility, according to X-Fastest and something else. Trial production is reportedly set for the third quarter of this year and a rollout for 2026. I'm not going to go too much into it because I'm not really familiar with the ins and outs of lithography, but there's these charts going around that I've seen on X that show all of these different Chinese companies that are advancing ways to create a domestic supply chain of mining to the person buying it in the shop or ordering it online for whatever product they need it for. And it'll be all done in China. So the lithography is like the icing on top. It's the cherry on the cake. If you can't do the lithography by yourself, you have to get somebody else to do it for you. And if they have sanctions on you, then they're going to give you the middle finger and tell you where to pound sand. So if you do it yourself, suddenly this worry is not in you at all. And you can continue to advance in the Asia Pacific while creating your own domestic supply chains, and then putting those chips onto ships and sending them around the world saying, hey, we're not going to sanction you. Use our chips. Huh? How about that? Counter narratives. Am I a China supporter? No. But I'm not just a mindless robot that watches the TV and says, that's what I care about now. I don't do that. Last one. This goes back to the United States, and this is coming to us from the Asahi Shimbun, Asia and Japan Watch from March 7th, 2025. U.S. to levy fees on ships linked to China, push allies to do similar, draft executive order. This comes to us from London it's from the Asahi Shimbun. They have a London office, do they? The United States is planning to charge fees for docking at U.S. ports on any ship that is part of a fleet that includes Chinese-built or Chinese-flagged vessels, and will push allies to do similar or face retaliation. According to a draft executive order dated February 27th and seen by Reuters on Thursday. All right, I got this originally from Reuters, but the Reuters website is so busy with pop-ups and things that float up and down. I just used the Japanese one, which is a lot easier to look at. The administration of U.S. President Donald Trump is drafting an executive order that aims to resuscitate domestic shipbuilding and weaken China's grip in the global shipping industry. The draft executive order proposes fees should be imposed on any vessels that enters a U.S. port. The full executive draft, seen by Reuters on Thursday, also calls on U.S. officials to engage allies and partners to do the similar things or risk retaliation. The U.S. Trade Representative's office proposed last month to levy fees of up to $1.5 million on Chinese-built vessels entering U.S. ports after a probe into China's growing domination of global shipbuilding, maritime, and logistics sectors. So that whole idea of China creating a network of satellites, even balloons, using jets, and having AI algorithms wirelessly transmitting all between them, helping their ships go around the world and helping consumers and makers and sellers all within the apps to conduct trade. Say what you will about the CCP and all that. I'm not the biggest fan, but I am a really big fan of Asian domestic economy and spending, like how good they are at local economies and setting up their own supply chains and things like that. And so why not? Why wouldn't the CCP take that kind of know-how and encapsulate it into a wider system, and then have that system exist outside of a U.S. hegemonic system in a bid to take over the world with that system? So having $1.5 million levies is quite stiff. It also sends a pretty strong message internationally from the U.S. perspective. Hey, if you think you're going with those Chinese guys just because they have some fancy apps and some AI floating around, well, you're going to have to pay an additional $1.5 million to conduct in those networks. Whereas if you use ours, we don't have to pay that much. So I would imagine that a lot of this cost would eventually get passed down onto the consumer or affect pricing for international shippers and things like that, and make them think twice about going in with the Chinese. I don't really have a giant magic ball Rubik's Cube thing for future predictions and all that. I just try to follow the trends as they are. But it seems that the United States is fighting back, and with the Biden administration being quite useless in Asia, especially, I mean, everything, it was useless for everything except making everything worse. But it really didn't do much in Asia. I haven't really talked about U.S. politics on the show ever, but now that there's this shift into Asia with a lot of the senior Pentagon, it's probably going to enter into the supply chain networks a little bit more as they wake up to the fact that this wild expansion with Russia and BRICS and all of these technologies that they're leveraging inside of their systems that don't need a lot of complex infrastructure to be built and made. It can be done wirelessly, transmitted with existing technologies, and you don't necessarily need the most advanced of the advanced to even make most of it happen. There's probably going to be an aggressive shift towards Asia on behalf of the Americans and the G7. I hope Europe stays out of it because they are going way too crazy, and I don't like Europeans sniffing around Japan, seeing what they can get in exchange for something else that they probably won't be able to deliver on due to the insane chaos that is enveloping the entire political structure over there at the moment. So comments on the supply chain war? Maybe spend more than $3 million and offer more things other than climate change, Japan. If China's going to be offering 5G telecommunications equipment, maybe go in with something a little bit more than existential threats. Sorry to not just lick your boots and love you. Sorry to have a valid criticism. I'm just a foreigner living here. That's all I am. I know you're not going to do anything I say, so whatever. Moving on to Japan Society 5.0.
The fourth industrial revolution will enable us to create a new society. Artificial intelligence will transform the big data collected through the Internet of Things into new wisdom. Society 5.0, a technology-based, human-centered society. The fourth industrial revolution will raise our standard of living and solve various challenges we face. It will, for example, free us from the stress of driving, allowing us to safely visit anyone, anytime. We will have
bold
access
predictions,
to the
Japan Society 5.0. That's, of course, the Japanese government's slogan video for its Japan Society 5.0 initiative. 1.0 meaning living in caves. 4.0 meaning what we're in right now. And 5.0, a AI algorithm-based wireless society. It was originally launched in 2016, 2017, and has changed a lot over the years, but overall I like to use it because it's, instead of just saying AI, look at this AI, Society 5.0 is an umbrella project, and it wraps things together and ties things together. We're often called like insane conspiracy theorists for looking at two things and saying, these things might be connected somehow. Because in most news articles, it's like, this is this, and this is this. And because I put this thing over here and this thing over here, you should not connect those things together because this is over here and that's over there. Why would you connect them? But let's use Society 5.0 as an umbrella term and connect things together. Today, we're going to look at one of the post effects of the rapid spread of AI, especially with large language models. Back when that thing was released in 2016, 2017, large language models didn't really exist. But I was running a AI school at a large telecommunications company in Tokyo. The telecommunications company it's national. It's one of the big three. It is one of the big three, and I was working there. And basically, I was just trying to find AI trends to introduce to a lot of their engineers and executives because they didn't speak English very well, and they needed to learn these ideas because they were largely being disseminated in English. So I was there, and I did that. And I started playing around with large language models at about that time, but they were very rough and very loose. And at the time of that Japan Society 5.0 video,
The Fourth Industrial Revolution.
This was when we thought drones would be making package deliveries to millions of people in 6 months, and that self-driving cars would be roaming around the roads. 10 years later, those things aren't really true, but other things have come and spread wildly. And that's kind of what this technology does. It spreads, and then it spreads in ways that you never would have thought imaginable. And I like to compare this type of innovation or this unleashing of technology onto the masses similar to going from horse-drawn carriages to vehicles. Somebody in the 1930s, who still had a horse and a buggy, in Milwaukee, bouncing around in the back, going down to town to get some goods from the confectionery. In 50 years, those people didn't know that there would be an industry for putting massive subwoofers into cars so that when they're driving down the highways at like 100 miles an hour, so there's what I'm trying to say is when these new technologies are unleashed, you have these peripheral industries that sprout up around them. And we're beginning to see that with artificial intelligence, and especially with large language models. For example, AI agents, AI hospitals, AI imaging for your medical procedures and stuff like that. All this stuff. But this one's kind of new for me. And this comes to us from the monoist.co.jp, published on March 6, 2025. I do a lot of the research for this in Japanese and use AI for translation. Hitachi uses generative AI to create AI customers and generate catchy slogans. Wow. Well, AI customers is something that I never thought would have ever happened. I always thought we would have drone deliveries. I'd just push a button on my phone and then a drone would come and drop a 6-pack of beer on my patio here, my veranda. And then I would order a cab and it would come and drive me somewhere without anybody in it. I could drink my 6-pack on the way to wherever I was going. Lo, that is not the result. I still have the iambic pentameter meter going in the back of my head, by the way. At Retail Tech Japan 2025, Hitachi exhibited AI customer generation and catchphrase generation system, two technologies currently under development that utilize AI for the retail sector. With AI customer generation, customer information linked to point-of-sale data and purchasing behavior data, as well as product information, can be input into the generation AI to generate an AI customer that incorporates the personality behind the purchase. By interacting with this AI customer, it is possible to virtually dig deeper into the reasons why customers were interested in a product, when they purchased it, or why they did not purchase it, without having to actually survey the store. There are limited means, including surveys, for stores to directly ask customers why they purchased a product. With AI customer generation, it is possible to hear the real opinions of customers without having to conduct a survey, said a Hitachi representative. For example, when if your eyebrows are going up, or if you're like, what? I'm with you. For example, when a purchasing staff member is selecting products, they will be able to rank the priority of the products to be purchased by checking the priorities of multiple AI customers based on the characteristics of each product, along with the reasons for each. At the exhibition, a demonstration was given of a purchasing simulation VR experience in which participants could wear a VR headset and see what products an AI customer had selected from shelves in a store recreated in the VR space, and then ask the AI customer questions related to those products. AI customer generation has been undergoing pilot testing at 2 general supermarkets since fiscal 2024. Currently, they are evaluating the accuracy of comparing AI customers with actual customers and plan to move on to the next step around summer 2025, including how to utilize AI customers. The other one covers AI slogans, and I guess that's a lot easier to understand or visualize, but AI customers, they're being sold. Is this AI slavery? We just put this consciousness in a box and prod it with inane questions. Why did you buy this pasta? Why not buy the other pasta? Was it the price? Was it where it was located on the shelf? I'm asking an AI product, and I think that it's a real person. And I'm going to use this information to make my store a better place. Weird, huh? A little bit more of serious news for the AI sector from the Asahi Shimbun from March 9th. Once reluctant builders now using unmanned machinery and AI. This has been an ongoing topic for a long time. Automating the all of the construction equipment at these major development projects, especially in rural areas, like making a dam. Getting to the place is tough. Moving around the place is tough. If you get injured in the place, it's tough. So why not have people working in remote locations and via screens and controllers, they control the variety of diggers, excavators, bulldozers, forklifts, whatever you got moving on there to operate a large-scale construction site remotely. It's kind of an interesting idea. Now it's happening. Higashi Naruse in Akita Prefecture. Okay, we're the writer likes to set up the scene and make it mysterious. 2 green bulldozers smoothly spread a mixture of pebble and cement at the construction site of a mountainous dam, followed by 4 vibratory rollers that compacted the fresh layer into place. By design, no one was at the wheel of any of these heavy machines. Whoa. Such autonomous equipment had previously been a rarity on construction sites, but with worker shortages hitting the industry, general contractors are now welcoming the technology. Yeah, you create a false employment system, and then wonder why no one's showing up, and then say, well, looks like we have no choice but to use AI technology that makes all these jobs redundant. Oh, interesting how that works, isn't it? Hey, we're only going to pay peanuts for these jobs. Nobody wants them. Okay, then automate them. And these companies have quickly learned the advantages of deploying tireless, multitasking workers adept at performing Herculean tasks with speed and precision. Autonomous Building 7 A4CSEL Quad Excel, developed by leading general contractor Kajima Corp, has been used at the Naruse Dam in Higashi Naruse, a village with a population of 2,300 since 2020. Up to 14 unmanned machines have been operating simultaneously since then, quietly building most parts of the massive embankment. Civil engineering work entered the most important phase in the summer of 2024, and AI plays a central role in the system. For instance, AI determines the optimal operational pattern using simulation software based on human workers' control of heavy machinery. Combining as many as 7,000 microtasks, AI suggests the most efficient approach to using multiple vehicles simultaneously. The self-driving heavy machines can operate around the clock, performing work that would otherwise require 3 shifts of human labor. Quote, "It is impossible for humans to do all tasks evenly," said Kenichi Hanamoto, a senior researcher at the Kajima Technical Research Institute. "Machinery can do it, though," he said. What role should humans take? A short distance from the dusty building site, 3 employees in business suits were watching the vehicle's performance on a monitor inside a control room. Anyways, it goes on from there. I'll just read the last line here. The monthly construction output of the 14 vehicles operating simultaneously at the Naruse Dam surpassed the previous national record for dam development projects. So there we go. Yeah. So everybody's there thinking that these robots are going to come. These Tesla robots or Boston Dynamics robots. But what's likely going to be the most logical thing is that there's not going to be a robot. It's just that process will be automated. You don't need a robot operating the wheels, the steering wheels and the brakes and all the levers and stuff. Just the vehicle does that. Just like a Roomba. It's not a robot. It's not like a 1950s robot, like a person, like a humanoid robot with a vacuum cleaner. It's just the vacuum cleaner. So the blue-collared work is being replaced, and the white-collar work is also being replaced, like with the AI language models and for copyright or for agents, and it's getting better and better for legal frameworks as well. Now we're seeing these are quite hard jobs to get. If you're operating like a giant crane or a bulldozer or excavators, you need to have pretty hardcore training to be able to do that. And now it's just gone. Poof, gone. I'll be posting links to this at MatthewPMBigelow.com, as well as, if you want to donate, just hit up paypal.me/Japan WUT. That's paypal.me/Japan WUT. Moving on. Nissan tests driverless vehicles in city streets filled with cars and people. So it's the journalist here, Yudi Kageyama, takes the same approach as the previous article, pretty much. The van makes its way slowly but surely through the city streets, braking gently when a car swerves into its lane. But its steering wheel is turning on its own, and there's no one in the driver's seat. The driverless technology from Nissan Motor Corp, which uses 14 cameras, 9 radars, and 6 LiDAR sensors installed in and around the vehicle, highlights Japan's eagerness to catch up with players like Google's Waymo that have taken the lead in the U.S. It doesn't mention Tesla. Japan, home to the world's top automakers, has not kept pace with the global shift to autonomous driving, so far led by China and the U.S., but momentum is building. Waymo is going to land in Japan this year. Interesting. Waymo is Google's self-driving taxi with no steering wheel. I seen it drive around a blind dude. The blind dude was like, I don't need to schedule a person to come and drive me somewhere. I interact with the technology and the car picks me up. Not a bad thing. But details have not been disclosed for the Japan release, but it has a partnership with major cab company Nihon Kotsu. During Nissan's demonstrations, the streets were bustling with other cars and pedestrians. The vehicle stayed within the maximum speed limit of 40 kilometers per hour, its destination set with the smartphone app. Takeshi Kimura, the mobility of AI laboratory engineer at Nissan, insists an automaker is more adept at integrating self-driving technology with the overall workings of a car, simply because it knows cars better. Yeah. What about Tesla? Quote, how the sensors must be adapted to the car's movements or to monitor sensors and computers to ensure reliability and safety requires an understanding of the auto system overall, he said during a recent demonstration. Nissan's technology being tested on its Serena minivan is still technically at the industry's level 2 because a person sits before a remote control panel in a separate location outside the vehicle. In this case, at the automaker's headquarters, and is ready to step in if the technology fails. So there's no one in the car, but somebody is operating the car remotely. That's a 5G technology as well, right? Nissan also has a human sitting in the front passenger seat during the test rides who can take over the driving if needed. Unless there is a problem, the people in the remote control room and the passenger seat are doing nothing. So this is trying to say it's technically level 2, which is very low. I think I made this mistake last week where I made a mistake with the autonomous driving steps. But basically level 0 is your typical car from 1932. And level 5 is there's nobody driving it ever, and you can't even drive it because there's no steering wheel. And level 2 is like a step above that setting that you can like set on your speedometer to keep your car going at a certain speed, and it's not going to stop below that. I can't remember what it's called. I used to use it all the time when I drove. And level 2 is you still have a human in the seat or in the car. So that makes it level 2. But it seems like this car is actually level 4, but perhaps there's some Japanese regulatory confinements to have people located in the car for safety measures, which reduces it down to level 2 technically, but actually it's operating like a level 4 or level 3. So far, Japan has approved of the use of so-called level 4 autonomous vehicles in a rural area of Fukui Prefecture, but those look more like golf carts. And a level 4 bus is going around a limited area near Tokyo's Haneda Airport, but the maximum speed is 12 kilometers an hour. And Nissan's autonomous vehicle is a red car capable of all of its mechanical workings and speed levels. And it goes on from there. we don't need to go too much into the article from there, except that Nissan is operating cars on Japan's roads. Elon Musk famously said, I think in 2018 or 2019, that automotive companies that pursue LiDAR are going to die. So Tesla does not use LiDAR, only cameras. And then there's sensors for like radars and things like that for proximity detection for curbs and other things. But I think the reason why he said LiDAR makes you die as an automotive company is that the way that the roads are designed, or they're designed for human eyes. And that means eyes that look at the road signals and all the lines on the road. And LiDAR spins around and creates like a 360 map. And that's not the way that roads are designed. So by using camera-based inputs with some sensors along the side to help the car position itself, it makes the car behave in a manner that is more suited to the natural development of how roads operate or how vehicles operate on roads. And LiDAR doesn't do that. I can see LiDAR being useful for things like the Haneda bus, where it's only 12 kilometers an hour, and it provides like an extra layer of input data, and it sees behind you. But the Tesla cars see behind them as well, because they have 6 or 7 cameras positioned all over the car, and it creates like an accurate visual representation of what's actually there via the camera signals, camera inputs. Whereas LiDAR is just like a laser spinning around and around and around, and it gives you an accurate feedback, but it's based not on camera input, but the radar or the LiDAR hitting things and coming back into it. So I'm not sure why they have this LiDAR approach, but if Nissan says that because they're automotive experts, they believe that they're the ones most suitable to use it, even though the most successful self-driving car company in the world doesn't. So yeah, there's that. I don't think we're going to do that one today or that one. Let's move on to some more interesting things. Ibaraki's Tsukuba and Tsuchiura cities to introduce AI into childcare facility admission selection process. This is just another paperwork thing, so taking jobs from white-collared people. Tsukuba and Tsuchiura cities in Ibaraki Prefecture plan to use AI to select children for admission to childcare facilities from next year. Until now, they've been doing it manually, but since the process is a heavy burden on staff, the two cities plan to use AI to improve work efficiency. The system will present a proposal for allocating facilities based on the selection criteria and taking into account the wishes and circumstances of each family, and staff will revise it as necessary. So this is a typical news article. This is from NHK Japanese, and it doesn't give us any real information. So I went and researched it with Grok, and I wanted to know more like the technical details about it. And by prompting Grok and getting it from Grok, this is what I got. So the behind this selection model, because the article doesn't give us any technical details whatsoever, and that's what I'm kind of interested in. So the company providing this solution for Ibaraki is probably Fujitsu's, and the solution is called the MIC Jet Misalio Child Rearing Support System, featuring its AI-driven daycare admissions screening. It's cutting-edge software designed to streamline the complex process of assigning children to childcare facilities, and it uses game theory to optimize matches between applicants and daycare centers, balancing factors like parental preferences, municipal priority rules, and what types of jobs or hours the parents are working and available slots. And the system pulls data from existing childcare databases and indices and puts them all together. So that's what's powering this thing, is Fujitsu. And as you can see from the criteria there, it's more or less just paperwork. What do we have? Where is it? Where's the paperwork for the facility? Where's the paperwork for the child? Where's the paperwork for the adult? But if you could just ask an AI to cross-reference all that and put it into a list, now you suddenly have this large amount of slog that just goes away. I'm overall in favor of this, so I'm not going to go much into it beyond that. It's actually not that interesting. Release next one. This one's actually important. It doesn't sound important, but it is important. Release of Japanese voice platform models Izanami and Kushinada. This comes to us from aced.go.jp. So this is from the Japanese. And it says, it is now possible to build high-performance voice AI using only a small amount of Japanese voice data. Overview. Satoru Miyama, research team director, and Jun Ogata, visiting researcher at the Artificial Intelligence Research Center of the National Institute of Advanced Industrial Science and Technology, ICE, have developed a high-performance voice platform models which can be used to build voice AI. The voice infrastructure model is a general-purpose AI model for processing and analyzing voice data, and it is used for voice recognition. To build the voice-based model, at least several thousand hours of voice data are required for the target language. However, compared to reading speech, there is less voice data for conversations, and the performance of voice AI has been insufficient for conversational voices that contain rich emotional expressions. I would say in Japan. So one thing I've noticed with some of this AI voice generation models that I've been playing with is that it can actually read Japanese fairly well. But for example, a lot of the Japanese kanji has multiple ways of saying it. Like the word for up, ue, has like 9 different ways to read that kanji. And a lot of the time, the Japanese language pairs kanji with other kanji. And depending on that pairing, it will change the pronunciation of that kanji. But these AI systems for voice that exist based on American models or just general large language models that hoover up all the information, they don't have the know-how to ensure that the Japanese model is speaking Japanese accurately. For them, it just sounds like Japanese enough, and let's just go with it. So in order for Japan to kind of maintain its cultural heritage in the AI space, it needs to create its own homegrown AI models. And that is something that Japan has been sorely lacking of. And I think this is very important in this industry. Otherwise, people will build it for you and they will butcher your language and your culture and not even know it. In fact, they think that they're doing you a favor because they don't understand just the butchering that's going on. Whereas if you are familiar with the language and how it should be spoken, it sounds like it's a massive disrespect. And now your language exists as a butchered language in an AI space because you didn't make it yourself. This is a big point of the supply chain wars too. You got to do it yourself or somebody else will do it for you. And then at the end of the day, they don't really care all that much about how you feel about it. So the fact that the ACE has been developing these 2 AI voice-based models, Kushinada and Izanami. I think they use 60,000 hours to make these models, and they can be downloaded at huggingface.co/IMPRT. IMPRT. So that's huggingface.co/IMPRT. If you want to have accurate Japanese models reading your Japanese, I suggest you go there because I've been using with Suno, making some Japanese songs, and I'm like, my Japanese isn't perfect. So I'm like, oh, that's Japanese. Then I read the kanji and I'm like, that's not how you say that word. I know because I know. And it's saying it a different way. So it's combining multiple pronunciations for readings of the kanji and mixing them together inappropriately. So just so you know, Japan, you got to do it yourself. Next, Trinity, the AI camera company, launches unlimited SIM plan for security cameras that does not require an internet connection. So how does this work? Using a SIM card for security cameras, you can remotely monitor real-time images through your smartphone, tablet, or computer, even at construction sites or parking lots where there is no internet connection. In addition, since no internet line construction is required, you can smoothly strengthen your security measures while reducing the introduction cost and effort. In addition to the 10 gigabyte a month, 30 gigabyte a month, or 50 gigabyte a month plans that were previously offered, a new unlimited plan has been launched in the lineup. A dedicated router is required to use a SIM card for security cameras. So there is an initial cost of like 14,000 yen. So there we go. That's an interesting idea. A lot of the times these companies will come up with all this extraneous equipment that you have to pay for, but by using SIM cards for each camera. Now you don't need it. Now it's just hooked into the internet wirelessly via your phone. And that's a real Japan Society 5.0 solution. Next, the future of Ibaraki, Part 1, efficiency, automatic detection of fires and floods, 24-hour nonstop safety monitoring. I always like to put these private and public solutions right next to each other, because when I see like a private company doing it, and if I have a gas station or an English school, they're like, I'm kind of worried about some of the people wandering around my house late at night. I might want an AI camera with a connection to my phone so I can see what's going on. And then the government is like, great idea. Let's put this everywhere all the time. And now the government will know what everybody's doing in real time with AI analytics attached to it. You're like, geez, I don't know. Really? A 16-meter tall training building stands at the Oarai Firetown Department. A camera installed at the top overlooks the city, and AI analyzes the footage to automatically detect fires. At around 10:10 a.m. on February 10, a monitor screen in the headquarters showed white smoke rising from the west. An alarm sounded, and the outer frame of the footage glowed red. It might be a fire, Kamayama Masato, 24, a communications dispatcher at the Orai Town Fire Department, who was monitoring the monitor, checked the screen with his colleagues, said, although no emergency calls were made, he rushed to the scene with 3 senior members. The smoke was from a resident had been burning a field at home, and after confirming that the fire had been extinguished, everything was okay. But since the location of the fire can be seen from the footage, surrounding information such as the location of fire hydrants and the width of the road where the fire engines pass can be quickly confirmed. These logistical information is very interesting. It's not just identifying the fire. Where are the fire hydrants? How big are the roads? Depending on the type of response you need, that's critical information. Kamayama explains the benefits of the system. So anyways, it goes on from there. I'm not going to go too much into it, but maybe that's a good use case. If it's not looking for people, but just looking for fires. What about people holding fires? Osaka Metro to start offering face recognition ticket gate service from March 25th. Now, there's a Mr. Pickett who runs the Barrier Free podcast, and I suggest everybody check it out. I'm not sure if I'm a supporter of those living with disabilities, however you want to say it. I think it's an important part of society that needs to be taken care of. And when it's taken care of correctly, it makes everybody's lives better. So I'm kind of selfishly interested in it. But he was saying in some exchanges that we had that QR code payment systems were using like your hand. Like if you're a disabled person and and your mobility is restricted from some sort of thing that you have, it's hard for you to hold up a phone. Your hand might be shaking, or you might not have control of your hand for a scan to go through. But is a facial recognition system therefore okay? I'm on the opinion that if it can be confirmed within a millisecond, then yes, because it doesn't look at like if you're smiling or frowning, or if you have like a puffy face because of the drugs you're taking, or a skinny face because of the new drugs you're taking. The camera doesn't look at that. It's a biometric reading of the distance between your nose and your mouth and your eyes and these systems. So even if your exterior appearance changes, the biometric data does not, and generally speaking. So the reading would be the same anyways. Osaka Metro announced on the 11th of March that it will start a walk-through facial recognition ticket gate service on March 25th. Facial recognition ticket gates will be installed at 130 of the 134 stations in Osaka Metro. By linking the digital ticket purchased through the eMetro app with the facial information registered in advance in the eMetro app, you can walk through the ticket gate. Digital tickets that can be used include the Osaka Metro 26-hour ticket and the Osaka Metro 48-hour ticket. Is that really a 26-hour ticket? IC cards and commuter passes cannot be used. At stations and ticket gates that do not have facial recognition ticket gates, each digital ticket can be used by holding a QR code over a ticket gate reader. Osaka Metro trialed the facial recognition ticket gates in 2019 and has continued on with it. So just an interesting idea. That's a big one, actually, Osaka Metro. But the idea where if you get off at a place and you have a disability and now you have to ask somebody to hold the phone. Well, maybe I don't want to ask somebody to hold the phone if I have a disability. All that is taken into consideration there. So it's not tight. It's not watertight. It's not a watertight solution. There's some leaky bits there. NEC unveils completely contactless face recognition payment to be introduced at the World Expo. Just another idea here. Not going to go too much into that, but NEC does have some of the most powerful and accurate facial recognition technology in the world, and it makes sense for them to appeal this technology at something like the World Expo. This is for as well government initiatives like DX, digital X transformation. So I'm not sure if I would like to use facial recognition system payments. I'm wondering if it's going to start. Do I have to interact with it? Do I have to confirm by pushing a button? I actually don't like pushing the buttons on these displays that are everywhere now. Push the button. You push the button and it doesn't work. Then you push it again and again and again. Then it works, but you pushed it twice. So now you just pushed another button. Now you have to go back. I don't like it. Let's take a look. Finishing off the segment here, I'm going to play some horns. To go back to compare with China a little bit, over the past few weeks, I've seen in the research for this podcast, China come up a lot, whereas it used to not. For example, Japan opening up a manufacturing plant to produce appliances made with Chinese AI technology. So that's a case of where 10 years ago or 15 years ago, Japan was expanding rapidly into China to produce Japanese goods for the Chinese market. Now it's reversed, and China is opening up factories. And that's not Japanese AI, and it's not even Japanese products. There might be a made in Japan stamp on it, but it's all foreign based. And another one was I saw a BYD Japanese EV, electric vehicle, on the streets outside my house last week. And now we have Japanese people purchasing more and more vehicles from China as opposed to America, for example. So where does this kind of stand in the overall comparison? This article from diamond.jp might give us a little insight. 49 Chinese universities in the top 10. Sorry, I'll say that again. 49 Chinese universities in the top 100 for AI. 0 in Japan. Half of top U.S. researchers are from China. So this is the scale that we're dealing with here. There are some survey results that are hard to believe. These were published in the U.S. News University Rankings. The university ranking is world famous and trusted, but when looked at from the field-specific rankings for AI, Chinese universities account for the majority of the world's top universities. Here are the 10. China has 6, Singapore has 2, Australia has 1, and Hong Kong has 1. Looking at the top 100, so that's the top 10 for the world for AI. China 6, Singapore 2, Australia 1, Hong Kong 1. Hong Kong is also kind of China. Singapore 2 in a way. Sorry, Singapore. Looking at the top 100, a staggering 49 universities are from China, followed by the United States 12, Australia 9, the United Kingdom 7, Hong Kong 5, South Korea 4, Canada 2, and Macau 2. It says there's also one country with only one university. I'm gonna use my mental prowess and read between the lines and analyze this. I might need a little help here. Please just bear with me as I analyze this. Which country could it be? I'm thinking it must be Taiwan. Which isn't China, of course, but it is made of ethnically Chinese people, some may say. In China, only the University of Tokyo comes in at 128th place, and no other university makes it into the top 100. Japan has 0 schools. There is a fundamental reason behind Japanese lag in the AI field. And I've already kind of said it before in other podcasts. It's a paid article, so I'm not going to go behind the paywall here. Even though I received some helpful information, I just didn't prepare enough in advance. But Japan just relies on America. A lot of it's the newspaper I worked at was AWS. Even some of the major telcos here would rather use American companies. And Japan has not been a domestic manufacturer, researcher, or enabler of AI. It's waiting for AI to be developed, and then it localizes AI for Japanese markets. And so there's no reason to go and study it because there's no burgeoning field for researchers to go into. You wait for it to arrive on Japanese shores and then customize it. That's kind of what they're doing. And you could say Japan's always done that, like with trains and with cars and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't innovate from the beginning, but it iterates from a decent point of development and makes it into something incredible that no other country can do or use. This was done in the eras of manufacturing with ships and heavy things that require a lot of time to put together. But the rate at which AI is able to develop is largely due to the reason that it's algorithms flying around wirelessly in our Wi-Fi fields and stuff like that. So unless Japan rapidly catches up, it's going to be the line of you could like imagine like a jet skier or somebody who's water skiing behind a boat. A bunch of people are water skiing behind the boat, and they all have their handles attached to the boat. And the boat is AI, and it's rushing forward. And we have China who's right there, and America who's clamoring. And then, as this goes on, the China's line to this boat just gets let out longer and longer and longer and longer till it's over the horizon, and we're just paddling around, waiting for somebody to help us. And the other one is a new AI thing that's been released from China. This comes to us from globaltimes.cn. So this is government mouthpiece from China. Another DeepSeek moment. Chinese startup launches new AI agent, sparking widespread attention, called Manus. Chinese startup Monica has lately released an AI agent called Manus, instantly attracting widespread media and public attention. Manus went viral with just about 20 hours of its preview launch on Wednesday. When was this? Where does this come to us? March 7th. It's March 12th today. And it is reportedly the world's first truly general AI agent. Examples showcased on the official website demonstrate its ability to independently think, plan, and execute complex tasks, delivering complete results. According to the company's official website, it is the general AI agent that bridges minds and actions. It doesn't just think, it delivers results. The AI agent has a wide range of applications, from creating a custom guidebook for a trip to deeply analyzing Tesla's stock, per the company. According to the team on Gaia, a benchmark for evaluating general AI assistance on solving real-world problems, Manus achieved a new state-of-the-art performance across all 3 difficulty levels. According to the team, the blah, 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 it's just more propaganda. Currently, access to the application is limited, and users need an invitation code to use it. Any codes out there for old Matty B here, the Japan What podcast? Who else brings you this information? Many users are flocking to a domestic secondhand marketplace platform seeking invitation codes, but sellers are scarce. Prices for these codes range wildly from $137 to $6,900 on this platform. On Thursday, a partner at Manus AI responded, saying that they had limited network capacity, so they're limiting it for now. But the idea here is that when DeepSeek was released, it kind of kiboshed in many ways the mysterious allure that large language models had on the public, because the owners of these companies, like at OpenAI, which was Microsoft backed and things like that, were saying this technology is so powerful, we're going to need billions and billions of dollars to make it happen, and we're going to need nuclear power plants to power our data centers. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. Or otherwise, it's just that's just what we need. And then China was like, well, here you go. Here's a free one that runs locally on your computer and is like 90% as good as, or 95% as good as the best one that you got over there. And people would download it onto their computer and use it. So that wiped off billions and billions of dollars into the speculative markets, into OpenAI. And now Microsoft is even saying, maybe we don't need OpenAI. Maybe we're just going to go do some other things as well. So this idea of AI agents now coming into place, where companies would need to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month for these AI agents to go through their company tasks and do all the dirty work that they need to pay people to come in and do. Well, if you're paying somebody $2,000 or $3,000 a month, and now you can pay an agent $200 or $300, well, that company that makes 1 million or 2 million AI agents at that price is going to be pretty happy with the results. So the move here by this Chinese company might just say, actually, if you just wait a couple of minutes, once we get our servers up and running, you'll have it for free. And now we've just undercut another burgeoning G7 market by billions of dollars as well, and wiped out a lot of speculation and invited a lot of people onto our side of things. A similar approach as to what's going on in the supply chain wars. Is it not? That's all a big part of it too, to drive more and more people away from one side onto another. And they're playing a good game. If you look at it in terms of sports, they're playing a good game. But we'll see how far this goes. One thing that China sometimes does is that it underprices things so much that once the government takes away its subsidization, how can it exist as a model? Because we're not sure if the Chinese government will be able to fund and subsidize these projects to the level that they are forever. And if they can never introduce their products at a profitable rate, will they ever be able to create good profits, once their enemies, the G7, are defeated? So would they just jack up the prices then and say, screw you, everybody? We don't know, because we haven't gotten there yet. But that is one. I was about to say something that would be taken. So it was a metaphor for in the armor, but we don't want to use that metaphor talking about Chinese relations. So that's one weakness in the waterproofing approach that we are seeing on the Chinese BRICS side of this segment here that we're tapping into the supply chain war as well, because it just makes sense when you do it. You can see that it's not just a one thing over here and another thing over there, but these approaches have the same game plan and the same layout, and the Chinese want to stay ahead of it by undercutting as they go along, because with the subsidies and actions and with the lower expectation of lifestyle in Asia, we don't need giant American homes, et cetera, they're able to leverage that into an advantageous position for now. All right. Well, that's going to be Japan Society 5.0 for today.
The fourth industrial revolution will enable us to create a new society. Artificial intelligence will transform the big data collected through the Internet of Things into new wisdom. Society 5.0. A technology-based, human-centered society. The fourth industrial revolution will raise our standard of living and solve various...
All right. So for the song today, usually what I do is I make a song based on the headlines, and I put it into a song generator. But today I had a different approach. What I wanted to do today was... take like still the same approach somewhat by making sonnets, but it's based on an idea of somebody working in the AI industry. And they have like this idea that it's good for some things and not good for other things. So it's a struggle to kind of understand what's going on with the future of this work that they're involved in. And the styles, I've changed them a little bit as well. I'm kind of going for more synthwave and 16-bit video game. And so the song today reflects that. I'm going to play it and let's see what happens.
He cradles circuits like a lover's hand, marvels at AI craft and prose unbound, yet dreads the drones humming overhead. savors code's elegance, fears its cold grip. A paradox where freedom bends to control. He programs AI to heal with precision, watches drones deliver aid to floods, but shuns the cameras mapping his face. Their data hoarded by unseen hands. It's not in the future, it's happening now on the Japan What Podcast. Self-driving cars steer through chaos deftly, yet surveillance feeds ads into his dreams, and facial locks misjudge strangers as foes. Technology lifts him, yet chains his soul. Autonomy frays in a grip that will never let go. On the Japan, on the Japan, what, on the Japan, what podcast? What on the Japan What podcast? Cast.
Or is it? For some reason, it doesn't like to end the song. It just goes on and on and on. That's going to be the podcast for today. Thank you for listening to the Japan What Podcast. Check out MatthewPMBigelow.com for all the links, photos, and more. Make a donation at paypal.me/JapanWUT. Until next time, everybody, I bid thee a heartful and warmful Ja Mata.